piece of me?
Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Good morning, Vietnam! I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I feel the need for speed.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
Love means never having to say you're sorry.
You do! You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Happy Sunday, moviegoers. If you're watching us live here on Emasawa Productions YouTube channel, a unannounced Sunday edition of the Cine-Men Movie Podcast. I'm your host, Juan, and I am joined by the cast, the crew, Edward.
Sir.
Craig.
Yo.
If you guys are listening to this, you are still listening to this on a happy Memorial Day Monday. But if you're watching us on YouTube, you get to listen and watch a whole day ahead. Guys, what a week. How's your week been? Craig, we'll start with you.
Week's been chill. Just been playing games, hanging out with the family. Started reading a little book.
Little notebook?
No, it's called we'll get in that later.
Edward, what about you?
I'm not too shabby. Yesterday had some problems. Got a pop tire on the middle of the highway doing 70. So
I thought you were gonna say Pop-Tart. I was like, if that's a problem, then
shoot, it might be. No, I'm just kidding.
Had a Pop-Tart in the middle of the highway. Sound like the people on 240.
Man, other than that, just work, man. Can't really go left or right, but yeah, I'll take care of it.
Every Memorial Day Monday, we talk about a different war movie. This is technically the 5th annual Memorial Day episode. This week, we're talking All Quiet on the Western Front, a Netflix exclusive remake from like the 30s. There's been different adaptations of this movie.
Started out as a book.
Did start out as a book,
which was banned by Hitler.
Yeah. Very interesting. So, I one of the reasons I kind of picked this movie was because of, it was nominated for 9 Oscars, ended up walking away with, I believe, 3 or 4 of them. But a lot of people were comparing it to 1917, and we haven't reviewed 1917. I don't think on this podcast. I'm not sure, but I completely adored 1917.
I thought we did. Me, you, and Zach.
We might have a long time.
1917 sounds like it was done.
I was about to say, I think we did, especially with the one shot or continuous shooting, for that matter.
But it was a fun movie, so I wanted to compare and contrast kind of if we could. But
I can understand why.
A look back at last week's episode, we had a fun conversation about Sicario, Josh Brolin, Emily Blunt. We talked about our top 5 movies that we can't believe we haven't done. And I think out of all those lists, we're all getting like all of those movies that we put on there, Craig's included. We're going to have some fun episodes coming up soon. I think it's going to be fun.
Give me like a rundown of y'all's. I wasn't able to listen to the episode.
I think I have mine written down here, actually. Mine was The Birds. My honorable mentions were The Birds, Friday, Civil War, Armageddon, E.T., any Star Trek of any kind. We've never talked about any Star Trek movie.
Ones, yeah. The old ones.
Interstellar. And then just because the sound bites are in our opening.
I thought we did Interstellar.
No.
Okay.
And then just because the sound bites are in our opening every single week, Dirty Dancing and Happy Gilmore.
Ed, do you remember any of yours?
I know How High was one.
Of course it was.
I think I had one with you as well. No, I don't. Yeah.
Because my list was A Walk to Remember, National Treasure, Four Brothers, which has, that's some notable actors in Four Brothers. Battle Royale movie, Johnny, the one that we always bring up, and then Tropic Thunder.
Tropic Thunder would be fun.
Which, if we want to get canceled, let's talk about that.
Zach had
RJ.
Zach had super bad in his.
Oh yeah.
Zach's not about that life.
So that'd be an interesting conversation.
He is McLovin.
But if you want to listen to the full episode last week, go back and listen to it wherever you listen to podcasts, including the social media page, facebook.com/the Cine-Men Movie Podcast. The link tree is on the Instagram /the Cine-Men Movie Podcast. And then the Twitter is at Cine-Men405. So, guys, we're going to get into some recent watches. Craig, we'll start with you. Have you kind of checked anything out, or what have you been playing that you want to recommend to anybody?
Yeah. So recently I started checking out The Chosen. It is basically a self-funded. It was kind of funded through certain means, but it's called The Chosen, and it's pretty much it's a story shown through the eyes of the 12 disciples and Jesus, and so like people all over that watch it, that believe in it, that don't believe in it. Joe Rogan even mentioned like he was surprised at how many views it had as a Christian self-made TV show. Started out, I believe it started out just on an app. Like you downloaded an app and you were able to watch it week by week. And it's very well made. So the actor that plays Jesus is actually in a newer movie called Jesus Revolution, Jesus Revolution. I think it's about the 1970s revolution movement. And so watch that. I'm in on like episode 7. I think there's 8 or 9 in a season.
So kind of an overview. What is it about? I mean,
yeah. So like I said, it's basically the story of like how the disciples came to meet Jesus. So it starts off with like Mary Magdalene, Peter, Simon, just kind of goes down the list, and then it shows, it's just it's Bible, so it's biblical, so it kind of follows suit of the Bible and the stories that are told in that. And then Pitch Perfect 1 and 2, Adley's favorites now. We just sat down and she was like, I want to watch Pitch Perfect 1. Watched it, got popcorn, turned off the lights, turned up the sound, and then the couple days later she was like, let's do Pitch Perfect 2. So
does she sit through these movies?
She does, yeah. I mean, she was kind of restless at some points, but like at the end of Pitch Perfect 2, when they're going through the whole world championships, she was locked in, and it's fun. It's nice because that is, I mean, like I said, those are my, some of my favorite movies just to sit there and watch. I mean, you can sing along and whatnot. They're just they're good films, and they're funny. Pitch Perfect 2 is so funny. I forgot how funny it was.
It's special, especially when you can sit there and share those moments and like kind of pass down. But Pitch Perfect 3 doesn't exist, right? You like didn't show it to her.
She was like, "Is there a third one?" We're like, "Yeah." She was like, "I want to watch it." We were like, "I don't think it's showing anywhere."
That's funny. Anything else you want to recommend?
I'm trying to think. I don't think I've watched anything else other than those. Play Tears of the Kingdom if you haven't played it. Zelda. I'm like 50 hours deep, so
I got some pretty new recent watches in. We didn't talk recent watches last week, so the last time we did talk about recent watches was during the Passion of the Christ episode. I checked out Shotgun Wedding with Jennifer Lopez and Josh Duhamel.
Yeah,
it was okay. There was some laughs here and there, but I don't think I'd ever want to watch it again.
Right.
Dungeons and Dragons was a little bit better than expected. Immortals, for some reason I was like in a Greek mythology kick. Bumblebee was so good. I'm watching some of the Transformer movies before I go and see the Beasts.
Agreed.
And
it sucks because the Bumblebee got the solo treatment.
Yeah.
Everybody was so just burnt out after that final one. The
last two.
Whatever final 2 Transformers there were. And, Bumblebee was a breath of fresh air. It had good good animation, good CGI. I felt like the actors were in good places.
So I checked out Ant-Man Quantumania, and I'm still gonna purchase the hard copy, but I watched it on Disney Plus.
It's rough.
It was very, very rough. I
Yeah.
had a hard time like staying entertained. The only the only thing that was like entertaining was the Jonathan Majors in the movie. Like Jonathan Majors was entertaining, but other than that, like I had a hard time
Yeah.
keeping an eye on it.
The rewatch was rough.
Really?
Rewatch was rough.
Did you watch you did watch it in the theaters, right?
I went day one in the theaters, and I
Yeah.
was like, I think I gave it like an 8 or a 9 on here, and then I
Mhm.
rewatched it, and I was like,
Dude, I gave it a 5.
I'm probably around that after the rewatch. Yeah.
And then the ending to me didn't make any sense.
What? How?
The post credit scenes, both of them.
With the all the duplicates of Kang. Yeah, because King the Conqueror was isolated, but they didn't want anybody to beat him other than them. Like if they were to destroy him, they wanted it to be them, and so they're like.
And then I just got done. I mean, I wasn't on the Ant-Man episode with you guys, so like, I wouldn't mind just touching bases on like, so, Marvel didn't expect Kang to be the big bad villain, and then they were so impressed with Jonathan Majors that they're like, hey, let's make him like the next Thanos. And now because of the trouble he's in, now they're like back to square one. They don't know what they're going to do for Phase 6.
Yeah, they had been talking about the High Evolutionary from Guardians being somewhat of a form of Kang. Since there's variants, they look different, et cetera, et cetera. And they were so impressed with the High Evolutionary in Guardians that they were thinking that maybe they could twist it and turn it into him being a form of Kang and putting him as Kang. But I don't know. Who knows what they're going to do? It just kind of sucks that they finally were getting pieces together and then, stuff happened.
And speaking of stuff happening, the other new movie I checked out was Creed 3, another episode that I didn't get to be on. And dude, it was a phenomenal movie. It was fun.
It was solid.
The only thing I didn't like about it was that the story between Dame and Creed felt rushed. Like it was only an hour and 50 minutes, and it just like at one point they're having dinner, the next point they are fighting in the ring in the main event in a stadium, and I'm like, dude, I don't know, it just felt a little rushed. I still gave it a 7 though.
Say that one more time. You didn't understand why they were in the ring and it was empty?
No. The story between the two felt rushed.
Yeah, it felt rushed, and it felt like I said on the episode. I just wish they would have shortened the flashbacks between the two, gotten it over with sooner, and allowed them to pursue the story of the present more at the second half of the film.
Yeah. But it was still solid. I don't think it was the best Creed movie, but I think it was probably at least a 7.
Yeah.
And then I did a Shazam back-to-back double feature. I watched Shazam and then Fury of the Gods. Fury of the Gods entertained me more than I thought I was going to be entertained. I was in such a letdown with Ant-Man and like the original Shazam. I was like, man, this is kind of funny, but it feels too long. Fury of the Gods to me was just right. It felt funny. It didn't feel rushed. I liked the cameo from Gal Gadot. It was just a fun superhero movie. So I don't know. But Ed, what about you? Did you check anything out? You have anything you want to recommend?
Yeah, I gone ahead and watched Quantumania, Ant-Man, Quantumania. Watched Shazam, Fury of the Gods, Guardians 3. Well, I think I might have mentioned that last week. I think. Finally got to watch Guardians 3, and then what else was that? There was one else I got to watch that I forget right now. Dungeons and Dragons. I also watched that. Out of those, Dungeons and Dragons was fun, lighthearted, not too extreme. Guardians 3 was heavy-hearted, but pretty dang good. Shazam, I agree. It's definitely an entertaining movie. I'd recommend it if you like the first one. kind of cool stuff. And then, yeah, man, happy with it. Simple.
Let's dig into today's movie. If you guys want to check it out, it is a Netflix original. Today we're talking about All Quiet on the Western Front. Um, a young German soldier's terrifying experiences and distress on the Western Front during World War One. IMDb has this at 7.8. Rotten Tomatoes is at 90%. The Metascore is at 76%, while the Google users are at 93%. It had a $20 million budget, and then it was released on Netflix October 28th, 2022. Um, won 4 Oscars, nominated for 9. But before we talk about this movie, guys, you guys have any special Memorial Day memories that anybody wants to share? I know this is probably bad, but I never really celebrated Memorial Day that big, just because work and I always had to work on a Memorial Day. But honestly, if I had to pick anything the last 4 years, talking movies with you guys and going over maybe some people's Memorial Day stories, has probably been some of the best with you guys. But what about you?
I would say, just being able to, yeah, I don't know, this might come off weird, but I mean, any chance you get to kind of spend time with family is nice. And then I remember younger, I didn't exactly know what exactly Memorial Day was. I just knew that we always went and visited my grandpa's gravesite with my grandma. Went and put flowers on it. That's about all I remember. But yeah, so just Johnny had stepped out. So we're going to wait just a few seconds.
Memorial Day is more than just usually what we've been talking about, but we lost Ed.
Yeah, his laptop died.
But we can get into the movie. Craig, is this like a first time visit for you?
On this movie?
Yeah,
first time.
I started it back in November, watched like the first 20 minutes, and then I just never picked it back up. It was kind of a rough few, probably 30 minutes. But what about you? Like, what did you kind of think after the movie was over?
I'll tell you, one thing that really stood out to this film was the makeup. Like, the dude's face down in the mud and it's wet in one scene, and then you go, a couple 30 seconds to a minute later, and he's in a different area, not in the mud, and it's all dried and cracked, and it's
like peeling.
It's peeling, and it's kind of the pale dirt mud color. That happens when it dries out. I was thoroughly impressed with the makeup and some of the score. There's areas in this movie where the score was really good. It was really haunting.
Yeah. I wanted to bring that up too. It's like real eerie.
And the cinematography shots of just the forest, whenever it's kind of early in the morning and it's dewy and like groggy, it's some good between shots, good score, good makeup. I'll really point that out.
Is this movie kind of like, if it has all the oohs and ahs of a real good war movie, but with it being a foreign film, did it kind of turn you off about that?
Yeah, I had zero clue what this movie was exactly about. the first like 30 minutes, it's in like a English dub of like a UK English dub, and so I'm watching it and I'm like, their mouths aren't matching up to what's being said. I thought it was an English film, and then I was like, okay, so they're German soldiers. Let me put it on German, and the mouths matched up, and so I watched it in dub for the first 30 minutes, sub for the next 30 minutes, and then I just went back to the dub for the second part of the film. So yeah, it threw me off a little bit for it being a foreign film, but I don't think it necessarily had any effect on it.
So I kind of had the same issue. Like I watched the whole movie in the original format, and then I watched like 15 minutes of the dub, and I'm like that kind of irritated me too, to where the lips didn't match up, and I was like, man, but I feel like I would be so much more invested in the movie if I completely understood everything that they said instead of just having to read the subtitles.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know, some movies I can pick it up real good, and like Parasite, for example.
Yeah.
It's subtitled, but I understood every single concept of the movie. And this is a war movie, so it's not complicated, but I still feel like the dialogue is real important in some of the scenes that aren't where they're not going through war.
Yeah. So in a movie like this, where I mean, if you are peeking down at the subtitles and you happen to see what's going on the screen, you might miss something. I feel like a movie like this is a harder one to follow with subtitles, just because you got a lot going on screen. You gotta put voices to faces and remember who's who and who the story's actually following, and the comrades of, I think it was Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just kind of tough to go back and forth watching the subtitles, watching the film.
And then you have certain scenes where like the violence didn't get to me, but there was like some scenes where the violence was just like, man, are you serious? Like the scene where the guy is trying to eat and then he just uses the fork to stab away at his neck, and you're just like, man,
he was done.
Yeah,
he didn't want to go on. Yeah, I mean some of the scenes were really gruesome. I was like actually kind of like
turned off with how much some of the
not really turned off. I was just clenching. I was like, I wasn't expecting this much. Like, so the movie starts off in the battlefield, and then they go back and revisit that same battlefield like an hour and a half into it, and you see the skull with the teeth out. You see the guy with the hands missing; they're blown up, and then obviously the tank rolling over the dude. I was, I was expecting some stuff, but they full blown show just everything. They're like, this was war. That is another thing I'll give this movie. I think they pretty well encapsulated the feeling of this war, this period of time. And I'll tell you, I could never dream of being in that situation. Like, that was, you got to be a real dude to be in that situation.
Anybody want to know or take a guess why, at least growing up for me, World War II was more talked about than World War One?
World War II had a lot more transgressions in it, for that matter, or a lot less transgressions than World War II did, for that. I mean, you know that World War One was quite a horrible period of time, but World War II is talked about a lot more, mainly because of the gas camps, the
behind
all kinds of different stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's known as a pretty messed up time in history, as well as Hitler basically was died around that period of time. So
yeah,
he died around the World War II time.
Yeah, he died in May of 1945. Like May 26th or something like that of 1945. I forget the exact date. Yeah.
And then World War One was around like 1917, 1918 kind of area.
I think 1914 to 1919 or 1921 or something like that.
Isn't that crazy? You have two world wars in a matter of how close they were together?
It was like 40 years.
Not even. I think even 25, because it started in 1941, and I think 1919 or 1921 was the end of it. That's why a lot of it was. That's why the Great Depression hit, because a lot of resources were used up.
1914 to 1918.
18. Okay. So it's a
insane.
Does anybody
crazy time period?
I mean, I know I'm throwing some historical questions at you guys, but I just he's Ed disappeared again.
What the
does anybody know what has to happen in order to call it a world war?
I think more than like 4 countries or something like that.
Multiple
I think it's a handful of countries against each other.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What is he doing?
What's going on with that? Is that me or?
Stop touching anything.
Okay, no.
If you leave again, you're done. If you leave again, you're done.
The laptop was first. I'm sorry.
So on this special critiqued edition of the podcast, what do you guys think as far as like this movie? Craig, we kind of already talked about the horroring aspect of the score and the cinematography, but Ed, let me get your thoughts. Is this movie, how was the gore for you, and the like some of the other shots of it being just war? I know we compare a lot of war movies easily to like Saving Private Ryan, 1917, but how was this as far as like some of the top tier war movies?
I think it's up there with the upper echelon. And honestly, you've got, say, the scene with the Paul against the French soldier. That small scene. He's going over there, stabs him, and all that. Or well, at first they wrestle a bit, and then he gets to stab him 3-4 times. And it's not like it's just like pouring blood or squirting blood 60 feet off, like everybody thinks an artery does, but it's just a leak of blood, and guy's starting to kind of choke on his own blood and all that stuff. It's an intense scene, but it's more mentally intense and morally intense because he's realizing a bit after he stabs him for I think the first time, this is a dude in a uniform just like me. Like, what if this was me? Oh my god, what have I done? So he goes over there and tries to kill him faster, which is just like, okay. And then he's like, I don't need to kill you, I need to help you. Like, what am I doing here? And it's just the hardships of war. Everybody thinks that they could do something like that until that actually happens, and then it's like, oh, this is not.
I was talking to Craig about this. Like, I was in love with like the score, the cinematography, like some of the war shots, and some of the war scenes. But like the language barrier of it being a German film kind of turned me off a little bit because I kind of didn't pay attention like I probably thought I should have because of the subtitles. Did this movie kind of do the same for you, or were you intrigued the whole way?
Me and Craig can probably align with this, but watching anime for as long as I have, it didn't really bother me at all. I've watched other films, like I know you have too, whether in Japanese, Chinese, or any other language for that matter. But no, my wife gets irritated with me because I watch anime in the sub, not all the time in dub. But no, not at all. And I think it kind of added for me, just because it's almost a little bit more realistic, in the approach, because it's using their like you're not going to go to a German camp and they're just going to be every now and then talking English just because, hey, you doing good, guys? And go back to German. It's going to be German. Just, so I think that was very cool. You'll think that, if I'm not mistaken, the French guy tried to utter a couple words just after he was initially stabbed. And, that was it's that language barrier, but at the same time, like, you understand probably he's going, oh my God, help me, or please don't, or don't kill me, or something like that. Um, but I mean, even with the chaos that was, say, the tank scene when it was running over the trenches and all that, the chaotic nature of that scene in itself, along with different language, because you're trying to pay attention to the action as well as what they're saying. Um, I find it, like I said, to kind of add to it a little. But yeah, I found no difficulty in that.
Yeah, I don't know. This movie, like, the visuals, the art, the makeup, the sound, it was all good. It's just, for some reason, this one didn't. I watched it, but it just didn't pull me in like others. I felt like the story was very, I don't want to say narrow, but it was like
kind of dry.
It just showed the aspects of war, which, I mean, is in itself something that's, very telling. But I mean, you go to some of these other films, and it's just kind of like, I feel like there was a little bit missing from it, and I don't know, I can't put my finger on it, and that's the thing that kind of is irritating about this, because it was, in my opinion, a good film. I feel like there was something missing.
I feel the same way. I don't know if it's because of, we're just maybe 2 years past 1917, and 1917 was such a good World War I movie, or I don't know if, like, to me, I feel like I'm always comparing something to another war movie, and like, there's so many good ones out. Yeah, like, there's so many good ones out there, but I do think the language barrier for this movie was that, like, Craig can't put his finger on it, but for me, I do think it was the language barrier.
And that's a huge possibility.
Yeah. And, like, to me, I wanted to like this movie. I mean, I went out and bought it, even though it's on Netflix. Like,
on 4K.
I really, really wanted to like this movie, but I just think, and I do like it, but I think it was the language barrier that kind of sets aside from somebody else or from another movie.
It didn't push it to that level for you, basically. Yeah. Like, this is a mid-tier probably for you.
I think I still might kind of give it a little nod. I don't think I'm going to completely crap on it, because, I mean, it's a really well put together. It's a good looking movie.
Yeah. I think we're just so.
I also do think it did not need to be 2 hours and 40 minutes long.
Yeah, it was a long one. I think
it was.
I think we're just so used to kind of having, like, the whole perspective of a war in a film, whereas this one was solely kind of centered around Paul and his feelings and thoughts and perspective of war and how it went down. It kind of showed a little bit of them negotiating in the back, but it was, like I said, a solely perspective of Paul and his perspective.
How did y'all feel about kind of the compare and contrast of the two different sides that it did show, as far as, like, Paul and the, let's call them enlistees, and then, all the different officers and, higher ups and all that? Because, I mean, what I mean by that is, basically, if you look at, like, the regular soldiers POV, it was a lot of narrow, other than the wide fields, it was a lot more narrow, like the trenches, like the pits and stuff like that, to where the officers had, like the meetup dinner scene or whatever with the bald warmonger dude or whatever.
He looked like Dr. Eggman in Sonic.
The mustache did. Oh wow. That's awesome. It were very wide shots, to where they had probably was a 20-25 foot table, and you've got these big hallways, doorways that are just extremely enormous, or you've got these even the railroad carts or the train cars for that matter were just absurdly giant, for whatever reason, I guess.
I also
What?
think like, oh, go ahead. My bad. You cut out.
No, I was about to say, did y'all notice the contrast and all that between those two things, for that matter, and kind of
just how nice the generals had it compared
just how
to
different it was, the very narrow, small, cramped spaces of one side and the very, very wide, vast, open sides of the other.
Yep. I mean, yeah.
I think
That's a side of war that that really irks me. You have people sending thousands, if not millions, of soldiers to go face to face, running straight into bullets, and they're just sitting behind a desk eating liver and eggs and wine, and they're just like, send some more, send some more. It's that.
I will say this: most of the time with us or with our military, it's more of generals and higher, uh, compared to maybe legislature and different forms of government that are in suits and ties and all that are just in that mode for us.
I was
Funny
talking
enough.
to my barber about military, and he's a big time listener. He listens and watches every week. But like,
Nice.
we were talking about it, and we almost kind of agreed that war and military is like how annoying it is, and how just like, I don't know, it's like the country can't live without war. Especially this one. Like, we make
You're
so much money off of
you're
war.
going too deep.
It's like,
I'm telling you, that's something you don't want to dig into because it'll really upset you.
but it's like, yeah, I understand, but like, it's just, without digging into it, we just kind of grazed the conversation, and it was like,
We are a country, I feel, that kind of lives off that division in a way right now, because we can't talk out opinions. We have to argue opinions. We have to be right, and that's one thing. Like, you've got to understand everybody's different. Everybody has an entitlement to a different opinion, and I feel more if we come together on some of those opinions and actually listen to one another, might be for the better. But I mean, that's one opinion in millions, and everybody has five of them. So
Yeah.
it is what it is, and learn to love and live and listen.
you guys think this movie being on Netflix hurt or made it better? You think it?
Probably made it better.
Cause
I
it was
didn't feel like
Netflix?
it was on Netflix.
Really?
It was very well made.
I feel like it was kind of better for it, just because maybe people would see a near 3 hour war film that's set in W1, and they're gonna go like, you know what? Nah, I'm going to see Fast X or Guardians 3 or something similar to that. To where when it's on Netflix, it's kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll catch this. This looks kind of interesting. I may know that guy, or I may
Well,
know them, or
in that aspect, I also think it hurts it because how many people are actually going to watch the first hour and be like, I'm going to continue with this? Like, I got another hour and a half to go. Whereas if you're in a theater, you're there, you have the popcorn, it's a war movie. Maybe you're like, okay, you don't know exactly how long or where you're at. Because I did find myself checking the time. I was like, okay, I'm like an hour in, I'm like an hour 15 in. And, I checked it. I even like skipped like 10-second scenes where I felt like nothing was going on.
Yep.
I mean,
The pacing of this movie just hurts so bad. Like, I don't think it needs to be.
but I mean, that's All Quiet on the Western Front is basically a time period where you have war going on, and it's a lot of sit and wait. Things are active. What's going on, but you don't have orders to do anything yet. and so it kind of shows you their leisure time, what they did, the stealing of the goose, the guy leaving to go off with the 3 girls that walked by with their horses. Like, dude was just like, I don't care about family. I don't care about going back to America. I'm gonna go,
have my fun,
do whatever, live with these people. I don't know if he ever got caught as a traitor. I think that would be unique to see him.
What his
what
consequences
happened to
were.
him. Yeah, because you don't know if they took him and turned him in or what.
Killed him or made him a very, very happy person. Like, yeah, that's true.
But I think also that unknowing kind of, it lingers and you think about it. You're like, man, what really happened to that guy? And it just kind of lets your imagination go.
Yeah. It also won 7 BAFTAs. It's a very highly praised movie from last year, and I think the only reason I probably bought this was because it was nominated for Best Picture, directed by Edward Berger. I did not make that up.
You want the hamburger? You want the hamburger?
Yeah.
Oh, Steve Martin in Pink Panther.
He's
That's
ridiculous, funny. Man.
If you guys could pick a war movie to talk about next, what would it be?
Black Hawk Down.
Oh, he's been thinking about that one.
That's a good one. Star Trek's War.
There we go. It is. Star Trek it is. That's true.
Oh.
Planet of the Apes?
Touche.
War.
I mean, which one though, bro?
War of the Planet of the Apes.
Again,
we watch
every year.
Marky Mark.
He brings it up every year.
Civil War.
We watching Marky Mark or we watching Tom Felton?
I'd have to have like a list in front of me to be able to tell you, like, just some time to really sit down and think about it. I mean, because you could sit here and say like Black Hawk Down and all those, but I guarantee you there's one out there that is under the radar where it's like that's a good film.
There's a war movie with Clint Eastwood's son and it's Scott Eastwood. It's called like Outpost or something like that.
Yeah.
That's a really good war movie. Yeah.
Scott Eastwood.
Let's go favorite scenes. Edward, we'll start with you.
The scene where the tanks start kind of creeping up and then go over the trenches, that was haunting, man. Like, I couldn't picture that, to be fully honest. And I've been in modern tanks, and I couldn't couldn't picture that, man. And then knowing or thinking there's nothing I can do, trying to shoot it, trying to get away from it, even there's nothing I can do. And then right after that, they come up with flamethrowers and just go ape.
Yeah.
Oh my, like I couldn't, that scene was terrifying, to be honest.
Yeah.
Craig,
as far as favorite scenes, man, favorite scene.
While you think of that, I'll bring up Craig. You had brought up the guy with the mud dried up on his face so bad.
What happened multiple times?
Also, the scene where the guy takes the fork to his knife or the fork to his throat.
It's for a steak.
And then, honestly, probably some of the just war scenes of battle. Like some of those were just really, really well done.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the cinematography, just the shots of nature. Like when it showed that scene of the trees with all the fog kind of coming through it right above the little lake, and just those scenes were really good. Really fit in well as a kind of pacer to just show how calm things could be at some points. And then I think just the overshot of the tanks and the flamethrowers and everything. I know it sucks to say it's a favorite scene because I'm sure that it probably really happened. But just as far as a shot in the film, it was interesting to see.
I was about to say I'm more going with that just because that's one thing that, like I said, it was terrifying, and
Yeah.
I mean to think that maybe it didn't happen exactly like that, but it happened in a way like that is what makes it terrifying, to be honest. Because the scene I can watch, it is what it is, but when
I'd,
the reality is there, is just
I'd say
chilling.
probably the most powerful scene was when he's hiding in the mud, and then that dude gets blown up, and he falls into the hole, and he starts to stab him, and he realizes like, we're both humans. He's dying. I don't want to be in this position. I just had to because I was fighting for my life. And then he tries to save him, and then he finds the pictures of his wife, and he's like, I promise. Like that's powerful because that's human nature to care for people and to they're just
Feel
put in those
regret.
situations. It's not fair that they're put in those situations to have to do that.
I would probably we already talked about ours. Star rating. I'm gonna go ahead and knock some stars off of the 10. I'm gonna give this a 6, and I think I'm only basing this off of I don't think I'll ever, maybe at least this year or next year, or maybe even the year after that, unless I'm digging myself into a really deep war marathon, I don't think I'll ever touch this movie again. So it's getting a 6 for me. Craig?
Yeah, it was nice to see Zemo in it. From Civil War.
Yep.
But I agree with you. I think the shots, the overwhelming positive feelings I had from the shots, the makeup, the design, the sounds, the just kind of everything encompassing it. I don't think it's terrible. Like I said, I don't think it's not one that I'll pick up again because there's not really a story that grabs me. But I do think overall, as a film, it was probably done about as best as it could in that perspective. So I'll give it a 7.5.
Strictly standing on a one-time viewing, because I do agree it's not going to be one that I'm reaching for every Saturday just to be like, hey, let's throw on a great movie. I'm going to give it an 8. And that's mainly speaking just because this is a very, very good film that I see why it was nominated for Best Picture. I can see a ton of great things about it. It is the runtime because honestly, without the runtime and maybe a little bit better pacing, this might have been a 9 or a 10.
But that girth always scares you, Edward.
No, I mean, I think I might be the one to chalk up the most, extremely long for no reason watches here with that Watchmen watch. Uh, but yeah, it was a big story that needed telling, but at the same time, it was a story that could have been a little shorter, maybe even 30 minutes shorter, and it would have been pretty damn good.
Next subject matter. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Next Monday, June the 5th. Guys, are you excited for this long-awaited sequel from Into the Spider-Verse?
I am. Like I said before, when I went and saw the first one, I had a day off. I think it came out around my birthday, so I had a day off, and I was like, you know what? It's Spider-Man. It looks interesting. I wasn't sure of the art style at the time. Saw it, quickly became one of my favorites. Not just of Spider-Man, but of Marvel in general. I like the idea of it. I like Miles Morales as a character. I like his story. I like how they portrayed him. I like his just overall as a character. I think Miles is very intriguing as a Spider-Man character. And then getting able to dive into obviously the variations of what Spider-Man is. I think just overall the first one did a really good job. So I am pretty excited for this one.
Same. I didn't watch the first one until it came out on Blu-ray, and we had gotten it was like everybody was talking about this movie, so bought
it
it,
changed.
liked it, loved it. It just feels I have to pinch myself because I'm like, man, it took this long. I know the pandemic happened and stuff, but it's like, man,
Was it 2019?
It's 2019.
Yeah,
but
been a long time coming.
Yeah,
this was one that we actually changed a episode from what it was going to be to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, just because that's how much praise and how much like.
I just hope the length doesn't deter
What is
me.
this? 223?
220, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
true, but
I honestly, I think the hype for this one is going to be much bigger because since that first movie, you've had the Miles Morales PlayStation 5 video game. You have the upcoming news for Spider-Man 2.
Yep.
You've had the multiverse. You've had.
Do you think they're going to touch on any of the MCU Spider-Mans in this movie?
I would
think I don't want to spoil it, but I think they show something that ties it to something else.
I would think at least mentions of them, for that matter. I think without at least a mention, I think it would kind of be like,
if Nicolas Cage isn't in it, I'm boycotting.
I think it ties something to Miles Morales becoming a live character. I'll put it that way.
Wait, that's enough of predictions and spoilers from us. Next week we will talk Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse next Monday, June the 5th, right here on the podcast. Guys, is there anything else you want to talk about before we call it a day?
Any mailbags about Memorial Day or?
No mailbags. I don't have my phone with me. It's keeping another 2-foot person entertained right now. But you know what? Next week, we don't have another top 5. I think next week we'll dig into the mailbag and not only talk about some Memorial Day movies, but also I'm sure people are going to be sending in their Spider-Man ratings.
Send it in, man. Send it in. Send us, how was your week? Your favorite movies? Your Memorial Day activities?
Swing on by the show.
Your top 5 Memorial Day foods, Memorial Day activities.
What kind of hot dogs did you eat?
I mean, that top 5 a couple of years ago was a hot one. So
it was hot.
Let us know what you indulged in this weekend.
If you were happy with Night of Champions, super kicks heard around the world.
Potato salad, mashed potato salad, deviled egg potato salad, hot links, sausages. Edward's favorite foods.
Yeah, and let us know, if you did watch this movie, because I know a lot of people follow along. If you did watch this movie, did you keep it in sub or did you do dub? What were your thoughts on that? How did you, just let us know everything about it. So.
Yep, I think that's going to do it. All quiet on the Western front. Everybody get out of here. Go have a safe and happy Memorial Day Monday. We will talk to everybody next week for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse right here on the Cine-Men Movie Podcast.
All right, later.